Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Logan Blackman Show YouTube channel. I hope you all are ready for episode 2 of our 2024 NFL season preview. This one covering the NFC side of things. We watched the Baltimore Ravens lose to the Kansas City Chiefs last night, but we are here live on Friday getting ready for the Green Bay Packers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles down in Brazil. This is going to be a fun video. I can promise you that. But before we get into anything we're going to talk about today, let's make sure to go over the housekeeping items first. Make sure to follow the Logan Blackman Show on every single form of social media. And make sure to follow the Apple Podcasts and Spotify accounts. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up because we like before we try here on the Logan Blackman Show YouTube channel. And I don't want to beat around the bush too much. Let's just throw ourselves right into the fire here. And we'll start off again with the north, south, east, west. We're going to start off with the NFC North in an alphabetical order here. It's the team that we talked about, the Jets on the AFC side of the ball, where like everybody's excited or talking about the New York Jets this year because Aaron Rodgers is finally back. And on the NFC side of things, the team that everybody's seemingly the most excited about is the Chicago Bears. So it actually is fitting that we're starting off with them because they drafted Caleb freaking Williams, the first overall pick in the draft. Like we talked about in the AFC preview, they traded Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's not important in this video, but Caleb Williams is here. He's gonna smash, at least at face value anyways, and this could completely come back and not happen, which I'll knock on wood for all Bears fans out there, but Caleb Williams realistically should smash all the Bears rookie passing records. The Bears have never had a 4,000-yard passer. I wouldn't be shocked if Caleb Williams got that this year, especially when you look at the receivers on the opposite side of the ball. You got DJ Moore from last year. Remember the Carolina Panthers traded him to Chicago to draft Bryce Young first overall. We'll talk about the Panthers here in a little bit. They also traded for Keenan Allen this offseason from the LA Chargers and drafted Rome Odunze with the 9th overall pick in the draft. I really like when teams draft a quarterback and then draft a receiver along with them because they're allowed to grow together. And per reports, Rome Odunze is not going to be the wide receiver 3 here, and at least mentally, he's not going to be the wide receiver 3 here. They also brought in DeAndre Swift this offseason to help shore up the running back room, which DeAndre Swift's an all-right running back. I mean, he's bounced around a bunch these past few years. I think this is his 3rd team in 3 years or something like that. He's bounced around quite a bit since getting drafted by the Detroit Lions a few years ago. The offensive line, it's fine, I guess. Matt Eberflus, I'm not necessarily 100% sold on him as a head coach, but the defense played well, especially towards the back half of last season. Once they signed traded for Montez Sweat, the defense started playing like absolutely freaking insane. They also had Jalen Johnson, who solidified himself as one of the better cornerbacks in the league. Tremaine Edmonds is still there as well. Like, the Bears are a very solid defensive unit. Stevenson at corner, young corner from Miami. We should see him get some good reps this year. But overall, the Bears are an exciting team. They're a very exciting team because Caleb Williams is there. The Bears actually have a legit chance to have an actual 4,000-yard passer, which is insane to think for how old the Chicago Bears are. The fact that they've never had a 4,000-yard passer is ridiculous to me. But again, Caleb Williams should smash all rookie passing records for Chicago Bears. I would imagine he takes home the NFL Rookie of the Year. We'll talk about some other players on the NFC side of things that can make some noise this year, but Caleb Williams is easily the early front runner for Rookie of the Year. I like the Bears. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're Super Bowl contenders or anything, because I have seen that where people go like, oh, this team's stealing a Super Bowl, and it could be, but let's take a year to let the pieces mesh together. Let's see how they do this year. And for this season, I am going to have the Bears finishing above 500, which is weird to say, but I am going to have the Bears finishing around 9-8 this season. I think it would be a great season for Caleb Williams in his first year. And then moving on to the next team in the NFC North, we got the Detroit Lions, another team that a lot of people really love because Dan Campbell is such a lovable head coach. And I say that sounds like it's a bad thing. Like, oh, Dan Campbell, oh, we love Dan Campbell so much. No, Dan Campbell's an awesome coach. They've completely transformed the Detroit Lions. This team was a laughingstock. He was a laughingstock when he first signed for the Detroit Lions because they were talking about biting off kneecaps and everything like that. I was like, oh my God, what is this? This can't be real, can it? And then each and every year, it didn't matter what the Lions did, like or how people viewed the Lions, they just went to the tune of their own drum, to the beat of their own drum. They drafted players early because they wanted the players. They didn't care about what the national media thought or what fans thought of the players. Like last year, drafting Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell in the first round at pick 12 and 18, those picks worked beautifully for the Detroit Lions in general. Like, they had a great draft last year. You look at those two. You got Brian Branch. Sam Laporta was the number one fantasy tight end last year. Like, this team drafts so well, and they just do not follow what the national media says, or like what the general consensus is. Drafting Jahmyr Gibbs at 12 was not a consensus pick. Drafting Jack Campbell at 18 was not a consensus pick. Drafting Sam Laporta before Michael Mayer was not a consensus pick, but it's all worked out for them. And Jared Goff has turned his career completely around as well, completely resurrected his career, just signed a new contract extension this offseason, and the Lions offense is really fun. I mean, you got Penei Sewell at one of the tackle spots. Lions got a very underrated, I don't even know if it's not underrated anymore, just a very good offensive line. Sam Laporta at tight end, Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the best receivers in football. Jamison Williams, let's see if he can go, what we expected him when they drafted him 12th overall, when they traded up with the Minnesota Vikings a few years ago. Let's see if he gets back to speed. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the best backfield tandems in fantasy, or just in football, but fantasy football especially. I had both of them, and it's like one of the rare cases where you can start both running backs. And it's a great system to have. And Ben Johnson staying this offseason OC is freaking massive as well. On the defensive side of the ball, you look at who they added. Terrion Arnold in the first round of this draft. And then Ennis Rakestraw from Missouri, who just feels like a Dan Campbell type player at the cornerback position. Jack Campbell, we brought him up before. The Detroit Lions, though, and Brian Branch, I think they're moving him a little bit further back. He played more nickel last year. I think they're going to play him more as a safety this year. But the Detroit Lions they're just fun. They're fun. If you told me this 15 years ago that the Detroit Lions would be one of the best teams in football, I would have called you freaking crazy. Last season was not a fluke. At least that's how I'm seeing it right now. This team is just so well built, so well constructed, and they're all bought in. That's what's so fun about it. This team is just fun. They're a fun team. They're easy to root for. Maybe not Kirby Joseph. I know a lot of people out there don't really like Kirby Joseph. I can kind of understand why. But all in all, I really like the Detroit Lions. I don't think they'll drop off too much this year. I don't think they'll drop off. Again, they brought back Ben Johnson as the OC. That's a massive get for them. But Lions re-signing everybody, drafting well again. Let's just sit here and say the Lions, what did they go? I don't remember what their record was last year, but we'll go 12-5 for them this season. And then the next team on this list is the Green Bay Packers, who kind of came up late towards the back half of last season and really started to make some noise. I mean, you saw what they did against the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. That 49ers game, they were a few plays away from winning that game. So this Packers team is so fun and so freaking young. Jordan Love has developed into one of the best quarterbacks in football. He had 34 passing touchdowns last year, which I think was the second highest in the league, and he just got better and better as the season went on. And I think what's really fun about the Green Bay Packers right now is that they're so young on the offensive side of the ball, like Jordan Love, and then all of his receivers are first and second year guys, like Dobbs, Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. All these guys were in their first or second years. You look at that Dallas Cowboys game, every single person that caught a pass, apart from Aaron Jones, is no longer on the team, getting replaced by Josh Jacobs. Everybody apart from him that caught a pass was in their first or second year. This team's just going to continue to grow together. So this Packers team, I'm really excited to see, because I'm a really big Jordan Love fan. So I want to see this team continue to grow. On the defensive side of the ball, they brought back Jair Alexander. There were some there were some question marks around his future with the Green Bay Packers, but they were able to get all that sorted out. They got Rashawn Gary there, Preston Smith. They also got Xavier McKinney, Eric Stokes there. The defense is fine. It's nothing world beater-ish or anything, but this offense, I'm really excited to see how they continue to develop with Jordan Love at quarterback. The Green Bay Packers, they should be a good team this year. They're not going to be sneaking up on anybody this year like they did the last part of last season. I'm going to have the Green Bay Packers finishing 11-6 this season. And the last team we're talking about in the NFC North is, of course, the Minnesota Vikings. J.J. McCarthy, drafted 10th overall this year, tore up his knee in their first preseason game. He looked really solid in that first preseason game for the Vikings. So, I mean, we already kind of knew this. I was going to act like J.J. McCarthy was going to start. J.J. McCarthy was not going to start at least week 1. Maybe we'd see him later in the season, but it's going to be the Sam Darnold show. And this is a very good shop window-ish year for Sam Darnold, because he was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Teams loved Sam Darnold. People in the national media loved Sam Darnold, and it just hasn't seemed to work out for him with the Jets, the Panthers, and then he went to be a backup with the 49ers. If you would have told me back when Sam Darnold got drafted in 2018 that he would not only be a backup, but be a backup to the last pick in the draft, I would have called you absolutely insane. But this gives Sam Darnold some nice footing with the likes of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. We'll see what his injury history is. And speaking of injuries, TJ Hawkinson, we'll see when he comes back. Aaron Jones, a nice back to have back there. One of the better offensive lines as well. Christian Darrisaw there, Brian O'Neill. Like, this is a good, solid team. It just depends on how good Sam Darnold is, because his confidence was completely shot when he was with the New York Jets. Remember the whole I was seeing ghosts thing? Like, he had zero confidence in himself. He got traded to the Carolina Panthers, and then his next year there got replaced by the guy who got drafted first overall in his draft. Like, the confidence level in Sam Darnold was just at an all-time low. But this is a solid Vikings team on the opposite side of the ball. They've got all the players there. And on the defensive side of the ball, Brian Flores is back as the defensive coordinator, and amidst all the drama between him and Tua Tagovailoa, which I don't think anybody should be surprised about. I mean, when he was down in Miami, he made his feelings abundantly clear that he did not like Tua Tagovailoa. But Vikings, we brought up J.J. McCarthy getting drafted 10th overall. They had 2 first-round picks this past year. They traded up with their second one in the draft. Dallas Turner was the third defensive player taken in the draft, third straight defensive player taken in the draft as well. They also brought Stephon Gilmore to pair along with Byron Murphy in the nickel spot, Shaq Griffin as well at corner. Harrison Smith is still kicking it there. Jonathan Grenard, we brought him up in the AFC preview. Ivan Pace from Cincinnati, a guy went undrafted last year. He's still kicking on the defensive side of the ball. But the Vikings, I think this is going to be an interesting team to watch, because no one knows what Sam Darnold's going to be. Yes, he has all the weapons around him, like Justin Jefferson, Addison. Like, we brought up all those people before, but I just need to see it. And with this division being as tough as it is, it's going to be one of the divisions to watch. The Packers, Lions, and the Bears are all teams that could realistically make the playoffs this year. So I think the Vikings might find it a little bit hard to navigate the division. I don't think they'll be like a bad team or anything, like finish around 3-14 or 4-13 or something like that. But I am going to have them finish below 500, and I'm going to have them go 7-10 this year. Sorry, Vikings fans. And it's kind of fitting how we're doing this, because north-south, we go down to the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins, the Vikings' former quarterback, coming off a torn Achilles, signed a massive contract to go down and play for the Atlanta Falcons. And they went and drafted his replacement as well this offseason, which was a kind of an interesting strategy from Terry Fontenot and co. down in Atlanta. But Michael Penix had a very good career at Washington, but it just created so much unnecessary drama down in Atlanta, and there's going to be people that never liked Michael Penix, and he didn't ask to get drafted by the Falcons. Like, remember when Donovan McNabb got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, and the crowd booed him because they wanted Ricky Williams? Not a lot of Falcons fans wanted a quarterback this year, especially when they just signed Kirk Cousins to a massive contract. So there are going to be people that just don't like Michael Penix to start off, but hopefully that rectifies when Kirk Cousins eventually leaves Atlanta. Lord knows when that is, and Lord knows when Michael Penix will first see the field down there. But Kirk Cousins is a massive upgrade on Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. Zach Robinson coming in as the OC is a massive get as well. Raheem Morris coming in as the head coach. Zach Robinson is the OC with Bijan Robinson there at running back. You got Drake London, Kyle Pitts. So we actually see Kyle Pitts reach his potential. Like, the Falcons got 3 players at 3 skill positions that were all drafted in the top 10. And now we're going to finally, hopefully, with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, finally see them reach their potential. The offensive line with the Falcons is always fairly solid as well. So the offensive side of the ball will be good. I mean, really, especially if Kirk is able to recover from his torn Achilles and not have any hiccups along the way. The defensive side of the ball, though, for the Falcons is always interesting. Though they did trade for Matthew Judon from the New England Patriots. That's a solid get for them. And Grady Jarrett's still there as well. AJ Terrell's there. They did sign Justin Simmons this offseason to pair with Jesse Bates at the safety position. Like, the Falcons are a solid team. They're a very solid team. They needed a quarterback. They needed a new head coach because Arthur Smith just wasn't it. Raheem Morris, I believe, is a massive upgrade on Arthur Smith. And Zach Robinson, like, I'm just excited to see how this offense expands with him as the OC. I think the Falcons are a very fun team. I'm going to have the Falcons finishing 10-7 this regular season. And moving on to the next team in the NFC South, it is the Carolina Panthers. There's going to be a lot of eyes on the Carolina Panthers this year, especially just because Bryce Young is the starting quarterback for the Panthers. Like, I've seen so many things this past offseason, once the Bears officially drafted Caleb Williams with the first overall pick, so many things have gone around saying the Carolina Panthers trading up for Bryce Young in last year's draft is the worst trade of all time. And I don't want to sit here and beat up on Bryce Young, because I really liked Bryce Young. I liked him at Alabama. I liked when the Carolina Panthers drafted him. There wasn't a lot of chances for him to succeed this past year. You had only Adam Thielen really at wide receiver. I mean, you traded his number one wide receiver the year he got drafted. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of growing pains in there. And Frank Reich seemingly did not want him to be a starting quarterback. By all things considered, it sounded like he wanted C.J. Stroud to be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, but once they drafted Bryce Young, the C.J. Stroud love train for Frank Reich had to be over and done with, and Bryce Young just had a really rough rookie season. The Panthers receivers created little to no separation from their defenders, and I'm just hoping with Dave Canales coming in as the head coach coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, you saw what he did with Geno Smith in Seattle, Baker in Tampa, so we're hoping to see him boost up Bryce Young in his first year as the head coach. And the Carolina Panthers made some nice moves this offseason. You brought in Deontay Johnson, from the Pittsburgh Steelers, You drafted Xavier Legette from South Carolina, nice local kid there. You drafted Jonathan Brooks, who's not going to be able to play early on. He's coming off a torn ACL from Texas, but bringing him in is a nice backfield pairing to pair with Chuba Hubbard. The offensive line, I'm still not a massive fan of, but hey, you needed to make improvements on the offensive side of the ball, and they made some improvements. And it's not going to be a quick fix for the Carolina Panthers, but those are moves in the right direction. And on the defensive side of the ball for the Carolina Panthers, you got Derek Brown there in the middle of the defense. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney from the Baltimore Ravens, who had a fairly solid season for the Ravens last year. You also got J.C. Horn in the secondary as well. Like, the Panthers are, again, a team that everybody's going to be watching because of the Bryce Young trade from last year. The Carolina Panthers and Chicago Bears for Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, all those comparisons are going to be there every week. And the Bears and Panthers actually play each other this year, so that's going to be amplified when those two teams face off later this season. But the Carolina Panthers, I think they'll be improved. I think they'll look a lot better on the outside side of the ball. The defense still scares me. The O-line still scares me. I think the Panthers, again, will be improved on last year, but still not great. I am going to have the Panthers finish around 5-12 this season. And the next team in the NFC South is, of course, the New Orleans Saints. I'm not a big fan of this team. I'm not a massive fan of Derek Carr, and from all things considered, it seems like not a lot of the New Orleans Saints players are very big fans of Derek Carr either. So it's a kind of a messy situation down there in New Orleans. You got Alvin Kamara there. We'll see if he can get back to his old self. You finally got rid of Michael Thomas. Did he go anywhere yet? I'm not 100% sure if he's anywhere, but got rid of him, so that distraction's gone. Chris Olave is still there at wide receiver, but do you have any other wide receivers apart from Chris Olave? Not really. Like Rashid Shaheed and A.T. Perry are fine options. You do got Taysom Hill there still, and they said they're going to use him quite a bit this next coming season. On the offensive line, they drafted Talisi Fuaga, which I think is a very good get from Oregon State. Trevor Penning, a lot of eyes will be on him this season because they need to see him improve. They switched him over to the right side of the offensive line with Fuaga taking that left side spot. But defensively, I'm not a big fan of the Saints. Cameron Jordan's still kicking it there. Marshawn Lattimore's still kicking it, but I just don't think this Saints team is that great. And with all the stuff going on with Derek Carr on the outside side of the ball with the team, from, again, all things considered, do not seem to really like Derek Carr. Do we see Spencer Rattler play at some point this season? I don't know, but I'm just not a massive fan of this team with the Falcons improving, with the Panthers seemingly going to improve this year. I know I said they'd be 5-12, but that's improvement from last year, and the Buccaneers still there. I think the Saints this year will finish below 500. I teetered around 6-11, 7-10. I'm going to have them officially finishing with a 6-11 record this season. Now, the final team in this division is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, the $100 million man, signed a nice little contract extension for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this offseason. We brought Canales going up to the Carolina Panthers, so we'll see how they adjust with a new OC. Rashad White at running back, Mike Evans, Mr. Consistent, never has had less than 1,000 yards receiving in his career. We'll knock on wood for him because I'd like to see that continue. Chris Godwin, their reports suggest we'll see him a little bit more in the slot this season, so that could be a nice move for him. They drafted Graham Barton from Duke in the first round, which I think is a very nice get to replace Ryan Jensen along the outside line. And speaking of replacing people, the likes of Devin White and Carlton Davis are gone on the defensive side of the ball, so those are big. And Shaq Barrett, who recently just retired, actually. All those guys are gone, so They had some really weird cap situations this year, so they had to pick and choose who they re-signed. They were able to re-sign Antoine Winfield, so that was a very good get for them. Vita Vea is also still there on the defensive side of the ball. But we're going to need to see the likes of Yaya Diaby, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka step up this year as edge rushers. But the Buccaneers, I think, are a fine team. They took a lot of people by surprise this year. I didn't think they'd be anything this year. I mean, going from Tom Brady to a quarterback battle between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask was not something that really screamed, oh, playoff team. That wasn't something that I thought this past season, but they got good. They were good. Baker Mayfield was good. Like, I'm excited to see what he does to continue to improve on last season, especially after making a new contract. But with, again, the Falcons being an actual contender in this division now, like not just at face value, but they actually have the pieces now to actually compete. And the piece the Buccaneers lost on the defensive side of the ball will be very interesting to see how they replace those guys. I am going to have the Bucs finish second in this division. We're going to finish around 500, and I'm going to have them going 8-9 this season. And the next division, of course, the NFC East. We're going to talk about the least East team in this division, and that is the Dallas Cowboys. Take a deep breath, Cowboys fans. CeeDee Lamb is back. They re-signed him. Finally got him re-signed. We'll see what Dak Prescott's situation is after this next season, but he's coming off a season where he finished second in the MVP race. CeeDee Lamb was one of the front runners for Offensive Player of the Year, led the league in receptions and targets. Like those two, CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, had a telepathic connection this past season. But the Cowboys are a very interesting team because Jerry Jones said they would be all in this offseason. They barely made any moves. I mean, the biggest moves they made were bringing in the likes of Zeke Elliott, and they brought in Dalvin Cook. So they have like the oldest running back room in football. They have the best running back room from 2017. That's pretty cool for the Cowboys. But from some of the Cowboys fans I've talked to, Rico Dowdle, the running back from South Carolina, he could be a guy that actually challenges for RB1 touches this next season. So that'll be something to watch. Jake Ferguson at the tight end position, one of the better tight ends in football. The offensive line, Tyrone Smith is gone. Tyler Biadasz is gone as well. They did bring in Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, so we'll see when he adjusts in there. Tyler Smith is still one of the best guards in football. And they also drafted Cooper Beebe from Kansas State as well, so we'll see when they implement him along the offensive line as well. On the defensive side of the ball, DaRon Bland is going to be, I don't know if he's out for the season or out for a few weeks. I can't really remember that. We were doing a fantasy football draft when that thing got announced, when they announced he was hurt. So I wasn't really paying attention. I was more focused on building the greatest fantasy team of all time. But they do still have Micah Parsons there, who is going to probably be one of the, he's going to be one of the front runners for Defensive Player of the Year this year. Trayvon Diggs is still there as well. But the big loss on the defensive side of the ball is Dan Quinn, who went up to be the head coach of the Washington Commanders. So we'll see how they adjust with that. The Cowboys, there's always going to always be eyes on the Dallas Cowboys. There was eyes on CeeDee Lamb. There was eyes on Dak Prescott. There's going to be eyes on the Cowboys every single freaking week. And now that the CeeDee Lamb thing is all squared away, that can get the Cowboys focused on the upcoming season. There's no real distractions, at least you'd hope not anyways going in. But I am going to have the Cowboys, I think they finished 12-5 last year. I'm going to have them dip a little bit. I'm going to have them finish 10-7 this season. And the next team we got on this list is the New York Football Giants. They're rocking those weird ass red, blue, brown-ish uniforms, like they're old school uniforms from back in the day. Their logo in the middle field is sick, but the uniforms at that, not really. And you could say that about the entire offensive side of the ball. I mean, they did draft Malik Neighbors. I'm really excited to see what he does. A lot of people said he was not a lot of people, but a decent amount of people said that he was actually the number one receiver in this last year's draft ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. But the problem is with the New York Giants is who's throwing in the ball. And that is Daniel Jones. Brian Daboll, the head coach of the Giants, is seemingly not the biggest fan of Daniel Jones. I mean, if you saw the Hard Knocks clip of GM Joe Shane telling them that they were going to stick with Daniel Jones at quarterback, it was kind of like okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Because given Brian Daboll being in Buffalo, I could see him really wanting someone like Drake May. They couldn't get a trade up from the New England Patriots, who ended up drafting May, so they're sticking out with Daniel Jones. They did sign Drew Lock this offseason to serve a backup. I wouldn't be shocked if Drew Lock played a little bit this season, especially with Daniel Jones' recent injury history as well. They brought in Devin Singletary to replace the outgoing Saquon Barkley. Tyrone Tracy, former Iowa Hawkeye, former Purdue Boilermaker, is also there to the running back spot. I'm intrigued to see the likes of Wandale Moore there from Kentucky. Jalen Hyatt as well, who's a third-round pick last year. I'm intrigued to see how those guys do at wide receiver, pairing along with Malik Neighbors, who should just absolutely eat on the outside because he'll be force-fed the ball, I would imagine, on the outside for the Giants. And the offensive line, apart from Andrew Thomas, is not great. Evan Neal spent more time fighting with fans than actually blocking people this last year, and they just had so many injuries on the offensive side on the offensive line as well. So we'll see if they can stay healthy. If Andrew Thomas can stay healthy, then that's just a massive plus for the offensive line. But the Giants, I love Brian Daboll. I love him. But the Giants, I'm just not sold on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball, I could kind of say the same thing, though I do really like Dexter Lawrence, Sexy Dexy in the middle of that defensive line. Kayvon Thibodeau, can he, keep going up? Can he finally reach his potential of being a top 10 pick? They drafted Deontay Banks from Maryland last year at one of the cornerback spots, which I really liked. And they were able to bring in Brian Burns this offseason from Carolina Panthers, which is a massive loss to the Panthers. I guess I didn't mention that with the Carolina Panthers. That's a big-time loss, and he'll be a nice little addition to the defensive line for the I don't know why I keep saying Minnesota Vikings. For the New York Giants, anyways. The Giants, though, that offensive side of the ball, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, that quarterback room, and the question marks around the offensive line, that just scares me. I'm not going to lie. I don't think the Giants are going to be a very good team this year. I'm going to have them finish 5-12 this season. They're going to draft Daniel Jones a replacement in next year's draft. I would imagine someone like Carson Beck would be one of the guys the Giants look for in next year's draft. And then going from where Saquon Barkley used to play to where he plays now, the Philadelphia Eagles. This team was a really weird team last year. They had a lot of drama last year, and they completely fell off the face of the earth in the back half of the season. They absolutely got blown apart by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs, but I would imagine that all stuff is squashed. At least I would hope all things are squashed. Bringing in Saquon Barkley is a nice little kid. It's an upgrade at the running back position for them. Jalen Hurts is still kidding at quarterback. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown still there. Dallas Goedert at tight end. Now, they did lose Jason Kelce, which is a massive loss. So Cam Jurgens will be kicking inside to center. And Mekhi Becton, former New York Jets 11th overall pick, is moving in to play guard for them. Like the biggest guard I've ever seen in my freaking life play for the Philadelphia Eagles. But this Eagles offense is fun. They brought in Kellen Moore as the OC, so we'll see how that changes things. But Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. Adding in Saquon Barkley should be a lot of fun to see how this offense can grow on last season. And on the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles, they did lose Fletcher Cox. We're going to need to see how Jordan Davis, the Georgia pairing of Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter steps up for the defensive line. Bryce Huff, they brought him in from the New York Jets this offseason, which was a nice little get to replace Hassan Reddick, who is not really had the best time since going over to the New York Jets this offseason. And they did make some moves in the cornerback room this offseason as well. They brought in Quinyon Mitchell in the first round this offseason from Toledo. They also brought in Cooper freaking DeJean in the second round. They doubled down in the cornerback position, so we'll see how those positions go. So they were getting a little long in the tooth at the cornerback position with Darius Slay and James Bradbury in there. But overall, I think the Eagles will be a good team again. I mean, you look at the talent on this roster. Yes, Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce, those are big losses and big locker room presences to lose. But I think this Eagles team is just too talented not to... Like, I've seen some people say the Eagles will disappoint this year. I don't really see that. I could be completely wrong about that, but I think this Eagles team is a very solid unit. I'm going to have the Eagles finish jointly with the Cowboys and finish with a 10-7 regular season record. And the last team in the division, the last team in the English alphabet is the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, official week 1 starter for the Commanders, second overall pick, whose backup quarterback was also a second overall pick, former Heisman Trophy winner, and Marcus Mariota. Brought in Cliff Kingsbury to serve as the OC, which I'm very excited to see how that works out. He's a good OC, not a great head coach, good OC. And speaking of head coach, we brought this up a little bit ago, Dan Quinn coming in to serve as the new head coach in Washington. But that offensive side of the ball, I'm really intrigued to see with Jaden Daniels, because most defensive coordinators like Dan Quinn they hate game planning for players like Jaden Daniels. And winning the Heisman last year, he was insane. He was really fun to see. He'll be another one of those front runners for Rookie of the Year. On the outside side of the ball, along with Jaden Daniels, you got Brian Robinson. They brought in Austin Eckler as well. Tyler Biadasz brought him over from the Dallas Cowboys to serve as a starting center. They traded Jahan Dotson, which is kind of an interesting move. I don't know if they were trying to game plan for trading for Brandon Ayuk, but that trade ended up not going through, and he ended up re-signing with the 49ers. They do still have Scary Terry there. Ben Sinnott, I'm very interested to see how he does from Kansas State, to pair along with Zach Ertz, who they also brought in this offseason. But the opposite side of the ball is really the main thing for the Washington Commanders this year, because the defense isn't that great, at least at face value. Like, remember a couple years ago, their defensive line was such an insane unit. Like, oh my God, the Commanders have the potential to have one of the best D lines in football. Then Montez Sweat got traded. Chase Young, I think, is down in New Orleans now, which I completely forgot about till now. But they still got Deron Payne down there and Jonathan Allen. So your two best defensive linemen are there. They also did bring in Bobby Wagner as well from the defensive side of the ball. It was with Dan Quinn over in Seattle. So we'll see how he does. And you need to see more from Emmanuel Forbes. There was a lot of head scratches last year when they drafted Emmanuel Forbes over Christian Gonzalez anyways. And then as the season went on last year, even with Christian Gonzalez getting hurt, it was still head scratching to look at why was Emmanuel Forbes taking over Christian Gonzalez? We need to see him improve this season. But overall, I think the Commanders could be a really fun team to watch. I don't think they'll be an amazing team by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they could be a fun team to watch just because Jaden Daniels in the offensive was at the starting quarterback position. He's just an insanely fun quarterback to watch with Cliff Kingsbury calling the plays. I don't think this will be a playoff team. I'm not saying that, but I think this team will be a solid team. I'm going to have them finish around 7-10 this season. And the final division we are going to talk about today is the NFC West. Starting off here with the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray is back and fully healthy. For the Cardinals, there were so little expectations going into last season. I think I had them winning one game this past season. And I don't even remember who I had them winning that game against, but they were, not that bad of a team, really. All things considered. If you give expectations before the season started to what they ended up finishing, they weren't that bad of a team, especially when you look at their rotating likes of Josh Dobbs and Clayton Tune at the quarterback position. Kyler Murray coming back is massive for them. They also brought in Marvin Harrison with the 4th overall pick in the draft. Like we brought up with Malik Neighbors, Marv, I didn't think I'd say that twice, but but Marvin Harrison expected to have a very, very good rookie season, especially with a quarterback like Kyler Murray being back and fully healthy. You also got James Conner and Trey Benson at running back. Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson are also there at wide receiver. And then at tight end, Trey McBride, one of the better young tight ends in football right now. The offensive line, I'm still not 100% sold on, but they did bring in Jonah Williams to pair along with Paris Johnson, moving him over to the left side of the offensive line. The defense, though, Jonathan Gannon, former Philadelphia Eagles DC, for him being a defensive guy, he's going to need to pull all the rabbits out of the hat because this defense, I'm just not a big fan of it. We're already starting on B.J. Ojolari and Darius Robinson, who was the first-round pick this last year draft. Both are starting the season on IR. I think Darius Robinson should be coming back. I'm not sure about Ojolari. They still do have the likes of Budda Baker, surprising. I don't know how he's still kicking it there, but Budda Baker's still there. Sean Murphy bunting at corner. It's just not a great defense. Zaven Collins is there. I'm just not 100% sold on the Arizona Cardinals, the defensive side of the ball. I think they could be fun to watch in the offense with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison putting up a nice little 1-2 combination out there. But I'm just not sold on this defense. I am going to have the Cardinals finish 7-10. I teetered around 8-9, but I'm going to have them going 7-10 just because I don't like their defense. And the next team on this list, you could say kind of caught people off guard this past season. That is the Los Angeles Rams. I remember going to last season. They had 14 rookies on their roster. They signed so many players last offseason from the draft, whether they drafted them or signed them in free agency. They were just so young. Puka Nacua went freaking supernova this past year. If it weren't for CJ Stroud having as good of a rookie season as he did, Puka Nacua would have moonwalked to a rookie of the year last year. But, shit happens. If a quarterback does well in his rookie season, especially as good as CJ Stroud does, it doesn't matter how good the next player does. It's just like the Justin Herbert, Justin Jefferson situation from a few years ago. Same exact thing. But Matthew Stafford's still kidding at quarterback. Now, Zach Robinson's gone as the offensive coordinator, so that'll be a little bit of a loss because I say little bit. I was going to say it was a big loss, and it could be a big loss, but Sean McVay's still there. So they'll be fine on the offensive side of the ball. Kyron Williams pairing up with Blake Corum at running back should be a very interesting one. Cooper Kupp, see if he can get back to his old self this upcoming season as well. And the offensive line, we're going to need to watch the offensive line this year, but I like the weapons that they have on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, Aaron Donald is gone. That is the biggest loss anybody could have on the defensive side of the ball. One of the greatest defensive players of all time, not just of this generation, not just the best defensive lineman. One of the greatest defensive players of all time is gone. You're not going to be able to replace that. Now, they did do a good job in the draft getting Jared Verse and Braden Fisk from Florida State this offseason. I think those are very solid picks for them because you can't replace a guy like Aaron Donald with one pick. It's impossible to do. So doubling down on the defensive line early in the draft, I think was a very smart move, especially with two players that are friends, that have chemistry together. I think that's a very smart move from the Rams. They also have Kobe Turner, last year's rookie from Wake Forest, who had a very solid rookie year. They brought in Tre'Davious White, former Buffalo Bill. It hurts my heart to see him not play in Buffalo, but Tre'Davious White coming in for Buffalo. We'll see if he can stay healthy. I'm rooting for Trey White. I am rooting desperately for Trey White to succeed because I am tired of seeing him get hurt. I hope he has a nice career renaissance here at the Los Angeles Rams. But all in all, the Rams will not be sneaking up on anybody. Is sneaking up the right way to describe what the Rams did last year? Because they still had Sean McVay, Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford. But again, all those young players were there. So you could say they snuck up on people to a certain extent. They're not going to do that this year. I have the Rams finishing with a nice, calm, cool 11-6 record this season. And the next team we're going to talk about is the reigning NFL runners-up in the San Francisco 49ers. They've had a very interesting offseason, whether it be contract situation with Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams, or players getting shot in Ricky Pearsall, which prayers to a speedy recovery for him. There's just been a lot of noise around the San Francisco 49ers this offseason, but they're bringing back, with those contracts, they're bringing back pretty much everybody from the team that just went to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy at quarterback. I'm really intrigued to see what his contract situation looks like in the coming years because they've got the likes of Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, we just brought up before, George Kittle, Trent Williams. The 49ers are going to be one of the best teams in football again. Now, that being said, I'm still not sold on the right side of the offensive line. That's something that they should have improved a little bit more this offseason, but with all the names that they have on this offensive side of the ball, and not just names, the production that they have returning on the offensive side of the ball, if they can stay healthy, they will be one of the best teams in football year in and year out. And on the defensive side of the ball, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, they're still king of it there. They did bring in Leonard Floyd from the Buffalo Bills this offseason, which is a nice little get from there. Javon Hargrave's still there in the middle of the defense as well. And you still got the likes of Charvarius Ward and Hufanga in the secondary. Like, the Niners will be a good team. Shocker. I know. The Niners will be a very good football team. I think they win the division again. There's some people that are tipping the Rams to come away with the division crown this year, and I wouldn't be shocked by that. The Rams are a good team. But I am going to have the Niners finish one game better than them at 12-5. And then the final team in this preview is the Seattle Seahawks. New head coach. McDonald coming over from the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best defensive coordinators in football, now the head coach in Seattle. They also brought in Ryan Grubb from the Washington Huskies this past season, so we'll see how that improves. But they still do have the likes of Geno Smith. We'll see how Geno Smith does this year. My gut is telling me we're going to see a tiny bit of a regression from Geno, but Lord knows if that happens. It's not me hating on Geno Smith. I really like Geno. Sam Howell, they did bring him in from Washington as well. They still got the likes of Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba at wide receiver as well. Zach Charbonnet is a very solid number 2 option at running back. The offensive line I'm intrigued to see because Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross both battled injuries at tackle spots last year, so we're going to need to see them stay fully healthy this year. But they did bring in Connor Williams from the Miami Dolphins to help boost up that center position this year. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they did draft Byron Murphy, which I think is a very McDonald pick. The defensive side of the ball brought him in for Texas, the 16th overall pick. They were able to re-sign Leonard Floyd this offseason. Well, not Leonard Floyd, Leonard Williams, this offseason as well, which is a nice get for the D-line. And though you lost the likes of Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, you still got Reek Woolen in there. You've got Devin Witherspoon in there as well. Like, the Seahawks will be better defensively. It's just, I like the weapons they have on offense. I just don't know about the tackles if they could stay healthy. And Geno, for whatever reason, I hate saying this because I like Geno, but I'm kind of expecting to see somewhat of a regression this year. But time will tell on that. I don't want to say that, but I think the Seahawks could teeter around 500. I'm going to have them go slightly less. I feel like this is the harshest one I've been so far. I'm going to have the Seahawks finish 7-10. I could see them 8-9, 9-8. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. But 7-10 is my official prediction, and that is my final prediction in the 2024 NFL season preview. Make sure to go back and watch the AFC preview that we released yesterday. I would greatly appreciate that. Here are my playoff predictions on the side. I don't know what side they're on, but one of those sides will go through each playoff prediction, each playoff spot as well. And after that, don't know when I'm done putting those up, but here's my award predictions as well, whatever side those are on. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, make sure to check out all the links in the description. Make sure to check out the AFC preview as well. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. I've been Logan Blackman. I hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, I sincerely apologize. I'll try to be better next time. And I will see you all later. Peace.